Hey, so what I want to do at this point is I want to, I guess, kind of get started in a different tutorial only because, or a different project, only because I want you to see the difference here between um, doing things a certain way, like motion. So I have a new project. I'm calling this the snake tutorial. I think you may have an idea of what this is going to end up being. And bear with me for jumping around between projects. Again, I want to focus on motion, just like I did before with using the arrow keys to move the little robot on the previous tutorial. On this one, I want to do something similar but different. So I got rid of that sprite. First, I'm going to go here to the stage or the backdrop. Notice that I can add one, or if I go to backdrops here and maybe I fill in the backdrop, I'm going to have it all black. And if I get this rectangle and I kind of just draw a rectangle here that encloses that little white rectangle inside, and notice it makes my backdrop black. So that's what I want. Um, Again, I went to backdrops right here in the tab, and then I actually made one. So I'll use an all black backdrop. Now I can go to sprites and notice that I can still look for a sprite like I've done in the past. However, again, this time I'm actually going to make my own sprite, and we can do that with the paint option. And so I'll draw just a small rectangle here to kind of symbolize a, a snake. So let me see here. I'll put it right in the middle. Let me use a different color. Okay, it's not saturation, color. Let's do something like green. Maybe a dark green. Maybe not so dark. Maybe not so fluorescent. Okay, there, that's fine. And I'll just draw a small rectangle right here. And I want to see what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, if you want, at this point, you can also draw maybe like a couple of eyes. And if you zoom in here, and you could probably do it with your mouse, or if you have a touch screen, you could do that as well. We can maybe draw some black eyes. And so I'll click. I think if I just click here, I should put a dot and then maybe another dot right here. There we go. So that's two eyes and then maybe like a little tongue. I will say my sons are here, so if you just hear a little bit of screaming, that's my kids. Let me see if I can do this with the actual pen here. Oh, I don't know if that's good. I believe I can change the thickness. So if I go right here, I can make the pen just much more thin. That way when I draw on it, it's okay, that's good. So that's gonna be the snake. No need to do more than that. What I can do also is I think maybe I got a little ahead of myself here, but I can duplicate this. Notice that I have now two costumes, and let me see if I can actually just erase. I should have probably done this beforehand. Okay, well that's not what I wanted to do. I can duplicate the head. I would recommend in retrospect is um, when you have the square, the green square, just duplicate it before you draw eyes on it and the little tongue. That way you can have just a purely green square to use for the body of the snake. So I haven't done that. I'll take care of that later. We're not going to use it right away. But now I have a sprite and I can write the code for it. Now I'm going to focus on a few things here. The motion for this sprite is going to be a little different than the robot. I'll show you. I'm going to save right now. Okay, so I'm going to code motion as well. I'm going to let the snake move. But unlike the previous sprite, the previous application, or the previous project, on this one, the snake is going to be moving constantly, and I'll just hit the arrows to have it change direction. So I'm not going to have to keep the arrows pressed. Now, I'm first going to put here an event, which is when I click on the flag. and then I'm going to do a forever loop. Now we need to include this, like if I want to use an if statement, if this happens, for example, if I press on an arrow key, which is this one, if I press on the up arrow, I want to do something. Now the if statement, if I don't put it inside a loop like that, then when I click on the flag, I will check this. Notice how it kind of popped a little bit. It checks it once and never again. And so if I click on the flag and I don't press up the up arrow right away, it's not going to detect this. That's why we say forever keep checking if you've pressed on the up arrow. Now if I press on the flag, notice how this is activated. Okay, so now it's activated. So if I press on the up arrow, it's going to detect it, but nothing's happening yet. So I'm actually gonna go to variables. This is all brand new. I haven't talked about this, but we can make our own variables. Notice here, there's my variable. We can click on make variable, and I can make this variable for all the sprites. That means I can use the variable in every sprite. We call that like a global variable, or I can make it for this sprite only. I'll do it for this sprite only. We'll use one in a few minutes that is for all sprites. I'm going to call it dx. I'm also going to make a dy. Notice here that, again, I'll make it for this sprite. Notice here that they show up right here. And that's because they're checked here. If I uncheck them, they go away. They're no longer there. Now, what I'm going to do here is that I can use these to set the value or change the value of a variable. So if I click on the up arrow, I'm going to set dx to positive. Oh, no, actually dy. I'm going to set dy to positive 5, which means I want to go up five little steps. And dx, I'm going to make it 0. Okay. Now let me show you how this is then going to work. If I go once again to events and I get a flag, and I'm just going to say that forever. I mean, I want to be doing this forever. So I want these to just repeat and repeat and repeat. I want to I go to motion, and I want to change X by and change Y by. And I want to change them by whatever dx and dy are. So I'm going to go to variables, and now I can drag this little dx, put it here in the change x, and this dy, and put it there in the change y. Notice that if if I change x by 0, I'm not moving sideways, and if I change y by 5, I'm moving up. And so notice I click the flag and I press the up arrow, it goes up now. I need to initialize these. I don't believe they've been initialized, so I'll come here and initialize both of them to 0 when I first click on the flag, dy and dx. That should prevent this from moving. Notice again, my snake is not going, so I can actually have it start at a certain location by using the go to and go to right here. So I want to go to 0, 0. Or you know what, since it's the very first, this is only going to happen when I first run my code. I can just put it, I can put dx here or dy, but I'll just put here 0, 0. Kind of like hard coding the values. So these two codes are active at the exact same time. Notice I initialized my variable dx to 0 and dy to 0. I reset the location of my snake, which is 0, 0, kind of like almost at the center. Like if I click on the flag, it moves now. And then forever, I'm changing x by a certain amount and y by a certain amount. Notice that right now it's not changing x or y because both dx and dy have to be initialized to 0. However, this code is also active. It's running. If I click on the up arrow, dy is going to be set to 5. And so I'm going to be changing y by 5. And you can see that happen right now. There we go. And I can go to the other directions as well. I'm going to duplicate this block. I'm going to put it right below. And I'm going to say that if I click on the down arrow, I'm going to have dy be set to -5 so that I move down, and I still want dx to be 0. So now I have coded motion to go up or down. Notice I'm clicking on the up and down arrow, and the snake is moving non-stop throughout the entire program. If I click on the right arrow, I want dy to be 0 because I don't want to be moving up or down, and I want to set dx to +5 to go to the right. And then finally, if I once again I right click here and duplicate this block, I can put it here left arrow, and now this is dx will be -5. And now I've written code here that lets me move the snake. Well, as a matter of fact, the snake is always in motion. The only difference is that when I click on an arrow, its direction changes. So another way of coding here motion or movement within Scratch. Okay. At this point, now that we have some motion here, so if I click on the arrows, it moves. By the way, if you want, to move this faster, then you would come in here and change that 5 to something else, right? 10. But notice there's a lot of 5s here. And this is where variables are convenient. I can go to make a variable. I'm going to make a variable called speed. I'll do it for this sprite only. Notice I have speed here. And I am going to uncheck this. I'm going to initially, when I first start my game and click on the flag, I'm going to set speed to, with a value here, 5. And now I could just take here, instead of hard coding the 5, I can put speed there. I'm actually going to skip this one because that's -5, but I'm going to put a speed right there. And then I'm going to get an operator, which lets me multiply. So here where I have -5, I'm going to put -1 times speed. And notice that if I right click on this block, I can duplicate it, and it just gives me that block, and I'm going to place it here. Now, why is this convenient? Well, because if you want to make things faster, I don't have to go in here and change that 5, that 5, that 5, and that 5. Now I just need to make a change here and put 10, and it will automatically take care of everything here. So this should be a faster. There you go. And notice that if you want to add levels to this, like at some point you want the game to get harder so that the snake moves faster and faster and faster, and now you have a variable speed that you can change based on certain criteria. Okay, I'm going to move it back to 5, and then there's just one last thing we want to do here, which is I'm going to add an apple. That I can look up. There it is. Notice the apple, its size is it's kind of big, and you can mess around with the size here, maybe put it at 40. Okay, that's much better. I think that's a good enough size. Now all the code for the apple has to be here in its own sprite. So notice there's nothing right now, and the snake sprite has code in it. Okay, let's first start with setting always the size of the snake of the apple to 40. Events, when I click on the flag, I want to go to looks, and I want to set size to 40% of the original size. I also I needed the apple to be show up at a random location. So I'm going to go to motion here, and I'm going to put go to. Now we can do this random position. Let's try it, because I didn't do it that way beforehand. Set size to 40, and then go to some random position. Notice that it's random right there. Now, what I want at this point is for the snake to eat the apple. And so I'm going to go back to the code for the snake sprite, which I can actually rename here. I can call this snake head, because I'm expecting to have a snake body as well. There we go. It's renamed, so now it says should say snake head. Still says sprite 1. Okay, I imagine that might change later down the road. Okay. Oh, that's because I need to make the change here for some. That's here. This is the snake sprite. There we go. That changes, and then in the costumes you can have different costumes. So I'll have snake head and snake body. Now, what I want to do is I want to have another. I'm going to add a third block. Or you know what? Let me just put it in here inside of this. No, I don't want to mess with this because this is moving, and we don't want code there to. Let's just put it in a separate block, and then if I see the need to, I can put it somewhere else. So forever, I'm going to be checking to see if the snake is touching the apple. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to say that if, notice this code is in the snake, if I'm going to go to sensing, I'm going to do this touching color, okay? Now, because this code is in the snake, well, this code is for the snake. If the snake is touching a certain color, and notice that if I click on this little dropper, what it does is it lets me go in here and magnify. I can't quite see it because it's black, but if I hover over the apple, it's magnifying over the apple, and I can actually extract the color of the apple. So I'll click there, and it puts the color here, the red color. If that happens, I want to increase the score. So I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to make a variable called score. And this variable, I am going to make it for all sprites. I'm going to increase the score by 1. So I'm going to use the change instead of the set. I'm going to change score by 1. Notice it starts right there. When I first start my program, I want to set the score to 0. So that way, every time I click on the flag, it starts off at 0. And when I touch the apple, I want the score to go up by 1. So if I run this, I should be able to touch the apple and have the score. Oh, notice how it increased to 9. That's because the snake is in contact with the apple for a prolonged period of time, and that's why it's running up the score. It's working, not quite exactly how we want it to work, but now let's go to the apple. And for the apple, I'm going to once again do this forever loop, because I want to constantly be checking to see if this is true. I'm gonna figure out a way to detect when the score has changed. So in here in the apple, I'm gonna make a variable, and this variable, notice how there's only one variable showing up here, score, because I made that for all sprites, while snake has more than one variable. I'm gonna make a variable. I'm gonna call it flag. It's kind of like raising the flag that something has happened. We're almost done here. Just bear with me. So I'm going to initialize flag to 0. When I start my code, my program, I'm going to set flag to 0. And then I know that when the snake touches the apple, the score is going to go up by 1. And I'm going to say that if the score, notice I have an if statement. I'm going to go to operators, and I'm going to use the greater than. If the score is greater than flag, so it's kind of like a way to detect whether they're not the same. If the score is greater than the flag, that means if the score has gone up by 1 and flag is 0, that means the snake has touched the apple. And I want the apple to go to another random position. I want it to move. And I also want flag to equal whatever the score was, so that you don't go in here again. So basically, the flag is always going to be one less than the score, always. And so I'm going to go to change, or actually, I'm going to go set flag equal to score. Let's try. Notice flag is 73, and that is because score was 73. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, that kind of took care of it, but that's a little concerning. Let's run it. There it is. Now notice this, the apple sometimes happens to be just outside of the boundary. Now, what's happening is the score is going up by one. The flag then follows the score, but there's one frame where they're not the same, where the score is more than the flag, and that's why it triggers this go to and this set flag to. I'm not a big fan of the apple kind of going outside of the boundaries, but that's okay. We're gonna fix that later. The goal right now is to get just, oh, notice again, once again, the flag is set to 11. I think I know what's happening here. I think what's happening is right when I click on the flag to start the game, it keeps the old. It runs this code. It sets it to 0, but it immediately runs this soon after that, and it sets that. Let me see if there's a not equal. Well, it would still work the same way. Okay, we can fix that later. Again, notice my code works. I actually don't want to see the flag, the variable. I don't want to show on the screen, so I'll uncheck this, and I only want to keep the score there. It works. Score run up to 5. Was that too quick? I think it was, right? Eight. Okay. Well, that was too quick. Definitely too quick. It still has to do with something with the flag here. Yeah, I know exactly what's happening. Flag. Remember that flag is having a problem here when I first start my game. Notice it's 8. And when the snake touches the apple, this score is not going to be greater than the flag because the score is 0 until basically until 8 iterations. And score is going to get to 9. 9 will be greater than 8, and then we carry out this. So I'm going to see the score run up to 9 right now if I play this. Look. There we go. Okay, so it has everything to do here with when we initialize the flag. Let me go ahead and do this. Set flag to 0. Maybe sometimes you'll find that these blocks kind of mess with one another. Like they give you a little bit of a. That's still not quite working. You see. Okay, we're gonna have to troubleshoot this, but that's okay. We could probably do a wait here. Look, we can do this. Set the flag equal to. It's because this is happening so quick. Let me put this back here. This happens so quick. We have flag set to 0. Move the apple. I mean, we have flag set to 0. We move the apple to a random position, and then we immediately check to see if score is greater than flag. It is because we have the previous score from the previous game, and we set flag to the score from the previous game. So if I put a wait, and we don't have to wait a long time. We can do like a tenth of a. Let's try a tenth of a second, 0.1 seconds. Oh, there we go. So notice that every time I click on the flag now, doesn't matter if I play the game. Let me run up the score a little bit. Okay, notice it's 5. I'll stop it, and if I click it, there. That weight, that weight makes it so that we set it the flag equal to 0, and in the same process, score is set to 0, and when we get to this if statement, they're both 0 when we first start the game. Okay, I believe we've gone on for quite a while in this tutorial. Obviously, I want you to just replicate this code so you can see how it works. There's other things that we can do here, if touching the red color of the apple do something, but you can also detect whether you're in contact with another sprite. However, I believe that may be in the events. Doesn't look like it's in the events, but you can detect when you touch another sprite. Edge. Oh, there it is. Apple. Look, notice I can actually not, instead of detecting the color when the snake touches red, and we can say if touching apple. And in theory, this should work out the exact same way. Notice the apple's up there now. It works. I would actually use this one instead of the color, because if you have red in your background, for whatever reason you have red on your backdrop, it will detect that even if it's not the apple. So I would actually use if touching apple. I would get rid of that. Alrighty, that's all I have for this tutorial. We'll do a little more on the next one.